the Western Balkans, the frustration is palpable. People want more. More accountability from their governments. More security. More opportunities.
Why are you here tonight?
Because we are trying to remove dictatorship in Serbia and install a free democracy constitution now in this country once and for all.
Why do you want to join the European Union?
Because it's the only way that we can integrate with whole Europe and live without border and live in a free world.
Do you think there's hope?
Yeah, I think there is hope. That's why I'm here.
Held together for nearly 4 decades by the dictator Tito with the slogan Brotherhood and Unity, Yugoslavia dissolved in the 1990s in a series of wars that killed tens of thousands and left millions displaced. Internationally brokered peace deals ended the wars in Slovenia, Croatia, and Bosnia and Herzegovina, and a NATO bombing campaign halted fighting in Kosovo. The Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia was no more, and the region broke into 7 new countries, each grappling with the legacy of war. Since then, these countries have taken different paths, pulled by ties to both East and West.
Croats, for the most part, are definitely more aligned with Croatia and European Union, everything that is West. Serbs are more aligned with Serbia and Russia. Bosniaks are mostly aligned with Turkey and the Muslim world, and it's all great. I mean, it's okay. But the problem there is that when they're not using any of those influences or any of those contacts, diplomatic contacts, and so on and so forth for the collective good, for the greater good.
The region is at a crossroads. Croatia joined the European Union in 2013, and now its neighbors in the region are trying to follow suit. We traveled to the Balkans, to Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Serbia, to understand what the future of the European Union might look like in the region. For many, the EU goes beyond having a seat at the table in Brussels and Strasbourg. It's an opportunity for economic growth, security, and for meaningful and important reform at home.
Poslije rata 96. godine dosta nas je jednostavno izišlo iz vojska, odnosno dobili smo demobilizaciju. Međutim, kao što znate, zemlja je bila porušena.
Veterans like Nazil Velic returned home to bleak economic prospects and an unemployment rate that has rarely dipped below 25% in the years since. Many face serious physical and mental health issues like PTSD.
Mi imamo sad trenutno oko 1600 boračkih udruženja. Se ispostavilo da su to udruženja od 3 do 4 člana i koja većinom sad evo pokazalo se i na ovim izbora.
The government disperses financial support for veterans through a network of independently organized associations, which Velic claims are rife with corruption. He and his fellow veterans are protesting the corruption in a makeshift camp they built in the center of Sarajevo.
Znači, za 20 godina ova vlast nije željela da riješi te sve probleme. Oni su se nagomilali, koje ste partije. Tako ste mogli, ako su nekoj partiji nacionalističkoj, odnosno nacionalnoj, tako ste jednostavno mogli svoja prava ostvariti. Mogli ste doći do zaposlenja, mogli ste doći do neke penzije, do neke naknade.
Igor Čarnadek, Bosnia's foreign minister acknowledges that the problem of corruption is serious.
People here hate it, that they see that not everybody is treated the same by the institutions, by the judiciary system, that there is no real rule of law, that institutions are not strong, that you have to find some back alleyways to get to anything you need.
Sve je tu ovdje korumpirano. A?
Da privede se na englesku.
Da. Treba ne sti što živimo u ovakvoj državi, vjerujte. Jer mi ovo nismo zaslužili.
Znači, jednostavno u ovoj državi sad trenutno ne postoji vladavina prava, što bi vrlo bitno bilo kad bi ušli u Evropsku uniju da to postignemo.
Across the country, in Republika Srpska, Bosnia's Serb entity, the death of 21-year-old David Dragicevic in March of 2018 has intensified concern about rule of law.
Because we have the situation in which a young man was obviously murdered. And just shortly to introduce you to this issue, that March last year, after this young man was found dead, in a couple of hours we had a press conference by the police of Republika Srpska in which they said basically that this young man was drunk, that he was under narcotics, that he robbed a house nearby, and after that killed himself, which is crazy.
David's family has been actively advocating for truth and justice for over a year.
I don't trust my police, and that's the sad part. I think that's the saddest part ever, that I actually, as a citizen of Serb Republic, I can't trust my police that I will be safe in my city. Why?
Many believe that David's murderers may have had connections high up in Republika Srpska's government and police.
Still, we do not have a single clue on what happened. And there is a very strong perception that parts of institutions, not whole institutions, but some people in the key institutions were doing their best not to resolve this case. And when you have this, then you can understand why people feel that there is no justice, not only for David, but for everybody here.
Citizens started gathering for weekly demonstrations, asking for answers and justice for young David. As the protests grew, with tens of thousands participating, the police attempted to suppress the movement, sometimes violently.
Well, in the beginning, they just let us be there and gather and everything. But every time we have some new proof that they're hiding murder, it was a really big pressure from them to us. They're arresting with no reason. You can go and just stand over there right now, 5 of you, and police will gather around you and say, "Oh, you are not allowed to stay here more than 10 minutes." Why? Why I'm not allowed? This is my city. This is free country.
The problem extends beyond David's story.
Answers are 0 and 0 to the questions: how many indictments for corruption did you have, and how many verdicts, how many processes that are finished. And I think we need political will, we need more pressure. I'm speaking about positive pressure, not negative pressure. Positive pressure from public, from international representatives here, positive pressure on our judiciary system to be more efficient on this.
For Zlatko Karahodzic, a student and talented musician in Sarajevo, the legacy of socialist Yugoslavia often puts the region's difficult economic situation in a frustrating perspective.
A lot of people here, like the generation of my parents, they're used to like the fact, okay, when you finish your education, you will be given a job because it's in a socialist country. It's not the case anymore. We are living in a democracy, and that's also a question mark there. But job is not guaranteed.
So-called Yugo nostalgia can make today's economic challenges all the more painful.
My generation was taught that it was better here before the war. And I've grown up in a country surrounded by people who were mostly telling me it was better before I was born. And it's kind of depressing. And imagine how it affects the next generation.
Bosnia's youth unemployment rate of 55% has caused many young people to leave in search of better prospects in the European Union. Mediha Arnaud studies economics at the University of Sarajevo.
If we would join the European Union, I think that would had a great impact because we wouldn't, have to think of leaving the country. We would have greater opportunities in terms of, in terms of trade, in terms of everything, because joining the European Union brings the mobility in labor and in also the people mobility.
People honestly just want to live their lives. They want to work. They want to work jobs they were educated for. And the main reason why so many young people are leaving Bosnia right now is because everything that is going on politically and economically is pretty much destroying chances of employment. People are not leaving because life here is bad in any way. They're leaving because there is no work.
Support for EU accession, however, goes far beyond the economic.
People think that by joining EU we will stop the wars in this country because here you don't have a single generation in the last I don't know how many years that have not been fighting at least one war. So as one young man told me 2 years ago, I will never forget that, if EU membership will bring us 100 of years in front of us without a single bullet fired, we don't need another benefit. It's enough.
EU accession is often seen as closely tied with NATO membership. Several of Bosnia's neighbors, from Montenegro to North Macedonia, view NATO accession as a stepping stone on the path to EU membership. Together, proponents argue membership in these institutions will preserve the peace in the Western Balkans and beyond. However, the debate is complicated by the region's wartime history.
Samim ulaskom u Europsku uniju, u NATO, tu je naša politika podijeljena. Znači, Republika Srpska protiv ulaska u NATO, ova druga federacija za ulazak u NATO, znači oni se ne mogu dogovoriti. Oni se jednostavno ne žele dogovoriti, jednostavno kratko rečeno. Znači, oni igraju tu igru da se dogovore, ali unaprijed se već dogovorili da se ne dogovore.
Like in Bosnia's Serb-majority Republika Srpska, NATO is a controversial topic in Serbia as well.
It is based in the real, unfortunately not quite pleasant memory from the NATO intervention, not making any comments on whether it was needed or not. But the truth is that the country was seriously devastated during that period, and there were certain casualties, even those in the capital. Many of them really being everything else but not the military targets.
Serbian proponents of EU accession are working to untangle the two processes of Euro-Atlantic integration in order to ensure stability in the region. Of course, security is also a major concern for the European Union. This is perhaps most palpable in Serbia, given its historic ties to Russia. Journalist Maria Ristic leads the Belgrade bureau at Balkan Insight, an independent news outlet.
Now it's more a strategic question and a question of foreign policy, because if you don't get Serbia into the EU, then knowing Serbian close ties with Russia, you will basically get like an island that is not stable and can really affect the neighboring countries.
Zuzana Grubisic served as Serbia's deputy prime minister before taking the helm at the European Movement Serbia, a nonprofit founded in 1993 to promote Serbia's accession process.
There is no vacuum in international relations. If you are idle, uninterested, there are always somebody who is more interested and who will jump and fill the gap.
We will have one country which is in the middle and the biggest one, who still didn't decide whether it's pro-EU or not pro-EU. And knowing what happened in Ukraine and in general Russian tendencies in the Middle East, I think for EU this is a question of security of the European Union project. So I think that citizens perceive an EU as a institution that always demanded something from Serbia and that was never happy with what Serbia basically delivered.
In Bosnia and Herzegovina's Republika Srpska, ethnic Serbs feel a similar connection to the Russian Federation. Srđan Mazalica, a member of Republika Srpska's National Assembly, explains the relationship.
We've never been in war with Russia. The Russians supported our risings during the Turkish era, that the Russia supported Serbia in the First World War, that Russia also supported and liberated the Yugoslavia from Germans in the Second World War, and that both the people are Orthodox, that they share same Christianity.
The connection, however, goes beyond their historical bond.
Russia is a guarantee that the interests of the Serbs will not be violated in the Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Russia officially supports the territorial integrity of the Bosnia and Herzegovina. President Putin never raised any issue, neither that the Bosnia and Herzegovina should split nor to be centralized.
In Bosnia's majority Bosniak and Croat federation, however, some, like Professor Goran Kovacevic, view Russian influence as cause for concern.
Everybody knows who are the Americans, but Russians didn't come here that publicly. They came on the back door, whispering to these politicians, promising things, promising these gas pipelines through Bosnia and Herzegovina, through Republika Srpska, and then they started coming here. More professionals came, those from their secret intelligence service, actually those guys who know how to destabilize a country, and they are doing it now. So they will do everything to stop Bosnia from joining the European Union and NATO.
Foreign Minister Čarnadek, however, cautions against hand-wringing about Russian influence.
We have made our choices, and it is European Union. So I think trying to make it as some kind of a minus to Bosnia and Herzegovina, that we are also working with China, with the United States, with Turkey. We have made our decisions. We have done it unanimously. All the three constitutional people, Republika Srpska and Federation as both entities, so everybody, parties in power and parties in opposition, everybody supports Bosnia and Herzegovina in EU. So this is our main course, And parallelly, we do want to develop the relations with others as well.
With almost 2,000 miles of shared borders, the Western Balkans are a key route for migrants from the Middle East to the EU, making the region strategically important for the Union. Although Croatia is now part of the EU, it is not yet a part of the Schengen area. Slovenia has even erected miles of barbed wire fencing along its internal EU border with Croatia, placing extra pressure on the Croatians to secure the border.
Se nalazimo na vanjskoj granici Europske unije, bez obzira što nismo u Schengenu, ali primjenjujemo šengenske standarde. Se mi već sad ponašamo kao da smo dio šengenskog prostora i što se tiče standarda i što se tiče tehničke opremljenosti, broja policijskih službenika.
The migration situation has been a litmus test for those hoping to join the European Union.
I think the migrants crisis, especially the one from 2014-2015, helped European Union understand that it cannot resolve problems on the continent without non-EU countries on European continent. And that it's very important to have us inside as soon as possible, of course.
In the small town of Bihać, on Bosnia's border with Croatia, hundreds wait, hoping to cross into neighboring Croatia and on to Slovenia. The European Union has provided over 31 million euros in aid in the region since 2015. Still, disorganization and limited resources have led to serious problems for the migrants and refugees.
U subotu se dešava masovna tuča migranata u Velikoj Kladuši u hali Miral. Negdje od njih oko 50 učestvuje u toj masovnoj tuči, fizičkom sukobu koji je izbio. Razlog je raspodjela zimske odjeće. Dolazi policija, veći broj, uspostavlja sve šta treba. 6 lica je povrijeđeno, jedan je zadobio teške tjelesne povrede, ostali su lakše tjelesne povrede.
Although Serbia's response has been more organized than Bosnia's, the situation is far from perfect. Safet Rezalbegovic is a translator at the Krnjača camp, a few miles outside of Belgrade.
They're not perfect conditions. They are far from perfect. And we as a government, we agree, but this is the best what we can afford currently. They are forced to live here 2 years and extra. So if we look from that point of view, nothing is okay. But if you see from the another side that they are running from some bomb attacks, they are running because they are in life danger.
My name is Birkat. I'm from Iraq.
So what do you want to be when you grow up?
Football player.
Like me. For which team?
Dortmund.
Oh.
Both Serbia and Bosnia and Herzegovina are placed in a difficult position, wanting EU membership, but being forced to serve as a buffer to the Union, without having a seat at the table to establish a common solution.
Western Europe should resolve crisis in the Middle East, so unless you do it, you will always have people willing, or in North Africa, you will always have people willing to come. So fences and asylum centers, they don't resolve the issue, but I guess nobody is willing to resolve the core problems, just to deal with consequences, and migrants are consequences of wars, fights, poverty.
Some Some argue that those in power are hesitant to undertake the necessary reforms to join the Union, lest they lose some of their own power.
That's the thing we were told almost 20 years. That's our main goal, to join European Union. Our politicians are just talking. They say it will be next year, but European Union is not coming here.
Oni nisu nikad bili ni za rat, ali te su iste elite i zaratle i to i danas isto rade samo da bi ostale na vlasti. I vjerujte da se oni čak i plaše tog našeg nekog jedinstva, jer sa tim našim jedinstvom oni gube faktički svoju poziciju koju su do sada imali ovo 20 godina.
European Union is a very slow union. They discuss everything. I understand the reason they are not accepting us. We have a lot of reforms to do, but we are not interested in doing that so fast because many of our politicians are interested in European Union if there is a only guarantee from their politicians, from a side of European Union politicians, that they won't be prosecuted for the crimes they allegedly did.
Some Bosnians argue that the EU is only dangling the possibility of membership in order to accomplish its own agenda in the region.
The problem is the European Union. They don't want in this moment Bosnia in the European Union. This is the situation what we have in this moment. I think that European Union has to make some efforts to take Bosnia to the European Union.
Well, according to the Dayton Accords and Dayton Peace Agreement, it was set in Dayton, Ohio, in the United States, with help of the American government and American presidents. In 1995, this Bosnia and Herzegovina consists of two entities.
Negotiators divided the country into these two parts, or entities, roughly along ethnic lines, with Muslim Bosniaks and Catholic Croats mainly in the Federation, and Orthodox Serbs mainly in Republika Srpska. The role of head of state was divided into three positions by the Constitution in order to include one Bosniak, one Croat, and one Serb, known collectively as the presidency.
We do have a situation in which for the three-member presidency, people can be candidates only if they belong to one of three ethnic groups.
Presidency is consistent of the one Serb, Croat, and Bosniak member. And that Sejdić, Dero Sejdić, who is a Roma, and Jakub Finci, who is a Jew, they appealed and that this constitution is discriminatory.
Sejdić and Finci brought their case to the European Court of Human Rights, and in 2009, the court ruled that the men's ineligibility to run in these elections violated the European Convention on Human Rights. A decade later, however, minorities are still ineligible to be candidates for the presidency. Minority groups still organize actively, fighting for their rights and holding on to their cultures, like this Slovenian singing group. The accession process could be the one opportunity the country has to make serious structural changes to its government. But it could also disrupt a delicate balance in a region that is still recovering from war.
Well, we have one issue that differs us from our neighbors and other accession countries, and that is Kosovo issue.
Kosovo declared independence from Serbia over a decade ago. Although much of the international community acknowledges Kosovo as an independent country, Serbia and its key allies, like Russia and China, as well as EU members, like Spain and Greece, do not. The EU is placing pressure on Belgrade and Pristina to normalize relations before they enter the Union.
The problem between Serbia and Kosovo, we all know, is not the new one. But if I would allow me myself making comparisons compared to real life, it would be like a lousy marriage that was ended in not quite well manner where both sides believe they were right, and whichever side you listen, you have a sympathy.
Some see the Kosovo issue as a distraction from other serious reforms that are needed.
This is the issue that has hijacked our integration process to the EU, and that all other parts of the integration process are put on side until we resolve the Kosovo issue. So as one of the biggest or the biggest political issue that we need to resolve before we move forward in the accession process.
Despite the emotions complicating the issue, many see it as the only way for Serbia and Kosovo to move forward on their own paths to EU accession.
People are getting realistic that it is in our best interest to resolve it, not only because of the EU, but because you cannot live forever in a frozen conflict or in a status quo with your former southern province.
Now we have a new proposal coming from both Serbia and Kosovo. It's that Kosovo should be divided among ethnic lines.
The proposed land swap would involve redrawing Serbia's southern border with Kosovo to include area that is majority ethnic Serb, while parts of Serbia that are predominantly ethnic Albanian would become part of Kosovo. In the meantime, many Serbians are fed up with the long and complicated process.
The percentage of people who support Serbia's accession to the EU has been declining, of course. You cannot keep the momentum if you don't see the real progress. We are faced with a process of, as they call it into EU, enlargement fatigue, and we call it here accession fatigue. So when these two processes meet, which is the case here in Serbia, you have the result that we are in a slow motion.
Some argue that the political will may not be there on the European side as well.
The EU has a lot of toolboxes. It's just a question whether it wants to use it or not. The EU is also not united. That's also one of the issues. You will have some countries of the EU who will say, for us, Kosovo is important, but it's also important to have rule of law. Other countries will say, look, we can, look on the other side because Serbia is doing a great thing and wants to resolve Kosovo issue. So it's really also depending on what EU wants and whether EU wants Serbia as its member state.
Expect that we, being part of this big family, will have more input and income of the European economy, and that will raise our living standard of our citizens, which is very important for us. So we also, what is very important for us, the fulfilling the European standard is not only important for the European Union, it's also important for our citizens.
A sama činjenica kad bi ušli u Evropsku uniju, evropski standard bi se i zakoni morali poštovati.
This is very important to have these all standards and decisions implemented, because it protects, these are very good solutions that protect our citizens, very important. Our citizens also raise these issues. They want to know what they are buying in their store. They want to have air less polluted, and we truly believe that many European values, standards, regulations are in favor of the citizens.
Serbia has a chance to become a normal, modern European country. So that is our only chance to progress. It's not only about the money, it's about creating a democratic, sustainable system. We need to see the reforms done. We need to see better lives. That's what people expect. Better lives. That's the EU for the people.
I have no idea, and honestly, I don't think anyone has. any idea what joining the EU would mean for Bosnia. You always hear people talking about joining the European Union, be it politicians, journalists, anyone on the street. And they're really talking about it, but most of them don't really know what they're talking about. Joining European Union, it has become like the thing we are all waiting for, like it's gonna happen and it's gonna solve everything. And the truth is, I think, completely opposite. I think everything needs to be solved before you join the European Union.
At its heart, EU accession in the Western Balkans is an opportunity for these countries to change. Not for Europe, but for themselves and for their citizens.